Hello everyone, welcome back to the Dragyn's Den. Pull up a seat and your choice of drinks are in front of you. Welcome. We are back with another podcast episode here in the Dragyn's Den, and for a change of pace, we're going to do some one-offs for the episodes coming up, and I figured this topic could be a lot of fun, cooking and food. There's been I used to post a lot of videos related to cooking and food. I also posted on Twitter every time I meal prepped. So cooking and food has been pretty important to me for quite a long time. But I figured I'd go right back down to the beginnings and roots of how I learned to cook and how I started to cook, and then move on from there, basically how the interest was peaked again, and some of my favorite dishes are, my favorite cuisine, and some food that I would like to try in the future, some new dishes and new diets and things that I would like to try. So this might be an interesting episode for some of you, and fair warning, you might get very hungry, and I am doing this after a whole busy day at work, so I'm going to be hungry as well. So we're all going to be in the same boat here, but let's begin. I actually began cooking quite young, and I say cooking, it's more of finding the things that were in the kitchen and putting it together and saying, hey, it's food, let's eat. Let me explain this a little bit. So when I was younger, my little sister and I were, I guess when we were kind of old enough to be alone in the house, we would often be kind of left alone, not for too long, but sometimes over dinner, or an evening, and we'd have to eat, right? Because parents were both working like crazy, they kind of just get by. So what do you do when you're 12 years old and you have to cook food for your sister and yourself? So as you can imagine, it wasn't anything extravagant. It was boiling some ramen, instant noodles in a pot, draining it, putting that little seasoning pack in it, all that jazz. That was kind of the go-to. My sister and I were also a little weird when it came to quote-unquote sandwiches. I remember our weird favorite one that we used to do all the time for some reason was just 2 pieces of bread and maple syrup on it. Or we would do maple syrup and brown sugar. Yep, not even butter, nothing normal, just those 2 things, and it became kind of a weird maple French toast without the cinnamon kind of thing, and without it being toasted. We were weird. That was definitely a thing. So yeah, it became to cooking noodles and then pasta eventually, and I remember one formal first real recipe and dish that I learned to make was with my mom, and we made lasagna, and we used to do that for New Year's, and we did that for a few years in a row before life happens and such. But that was the first big thing I remember making, was lasagna, because up until that point it was the instant noodles, a quick pasta dish, or grilled cheese, and the weird maple syrup sandwiches. Legit. Then after that, things just, I ended up getting a job, so working, and then I learned how to make pizza and how to dice veggies and slice meat, and just kind of make a sauce and do all these things, because my parents had managed and ran a pizza place. So we again then learned how to make pizza and all those things. So yeah, dicing veggies was a really good skill to learn, even at the age of 12. And yes, many fingers were sliced in the process of this learning curve, and many fingers still sometimes get cut and sliced a little bit, but sometimes you're just really tired and you think you've got it, but then you don't got it. So yeah, I'm not the best cook or chef, but I do okay, I've learned over the years. So yeah, it became that kind of thing, and making our own pizzas at the pizza place was amazing. Because we would make the dough and we'd have to let it proof or like sit in the cooler for a couple days. And then after those couple of days, we were able to use that dough that we had made in the machines for our own pizza. So it was kind of like that big, exciting, wow kind of moment. And it was definitely a lot of fun experimenting with like sauces and types of cheese and meat. And my favorite, still to this day, that I will custom order would be the pesto sauce, so like that green pesto sauce with some roasted garlic. And then all the fucking cheese that a pizza place could put on a pizza. Like, I mean, all of it. Like feta, goat cheese, formaggio, Parmesan, mozzarella, cheddar. Like, I would go the whole works, put all that on there, and then yeah, eat that. And it was like almost a really savory, like cheesy bread kind of thing, and it's still my go-to favorite custom pizza. Oh, to this day, I love it. And other things that we used to do too would be, sometimes we would make our own like naan bread with the dough. So we would actually like put oil, like we would flatten out the dough ball, put oil on both sides, sprinkle a little bit of like cornmeal, and like sometimes we put garlic on it depending, and we just send that through the oven, and we'd have like a naan bread, which was so yummy. I loved it a lot. And yeah, that was basically the younger years. Was very Italian based now that I think about it. Noodles, pasta, lasagna, and pizza. But you know, when you're a kid, you're not really trusted to go like cut up chunks of chicken and fry that up, or cook a lot of meat, because you're gonna get scared. And I remember my first time browning beef or trying to cook beef. I was so scared that I was gonna burn it that I just was like, it's done after like 2 minutes, but really not all the beef had browned yet. My gran was always like, no, Violet, a little bit longer. Look at those pink pieces, get them out. You gotta make sure that's browned. Come on, a little bit more, a little bit more. Also, as a kid, it was usually that time where it's like we had a very set time when we would eat dinner. So it'd be getting closer to that time, and I'd be like, I'm just hungry. Let me eat. But yeah, there's been those moments where it's like, oh, okay, maybe Dragyn is not quite ready for cooking. Yeah, some lessons learned there when I was quite young. That kind of goes into the next phase of like cooking in childhood. It was like with my gran. So my gran is infamous for finding whatever's left in a kitchen and putting it all together. We would have different kinds of like hamburger soups and beef stroganoffs and hamburger just dishes, because we'd have like some ground beef left, and we'd have all these veggies that needed to be used, and tomatoes and seasonings and spices, that we just throw it all together, the ground beef, and just serve it up. And I remember when I was younger, I used to hate like all the spices in it. So when we would eat it and have that kind of like mixture, this hamburger mixture for dinner, I would like drown it in ketchup, because I was like, spices, I don't like bleh, bleh. So instead of spices, I went with sweet and salty, I guess, was my flavor of choice, apparently. But that was that. But I learned how to make that eventually, and realizing like, oh yeah, we had leftover like corn from a dinner before, and leftover like beans and peas and such like that. And my grandma just like thaw out that ground beef in the morning till the evening and put it all in together, and we throw in different like soup spice packs or onion soup powder, that kind of stuff, and just mix it all in, and it kind of worked. I just remember that being the main dish for quite a while. The other thing that I learned to make was like pork chops and pork chops and tomato sauce with rice. So you put the pork chops in the pan, you'd cook those up first really, then lower the heat. Then you'd throw in the rice, and then you'd pour like this huge, giant tomato sauce can over that rice and like the meat, and just have it like cooking together in this big like skillet, huge pan. Yeah, seems a little strange, but again, you know, easy, quick, affordable was kind of the theme for a lot of our younger years up here, so it kind of worked. You threw it all in together and ta-da! You have a big dinner for a lot of people. That was a big one that I remember also learning. And yeah, it was mainly that. Never did a lot of baking when I was younger. So that's actually going to be something for later in this episode, is I need to learn how to bake. I need to get better at that, because I can follow a recipe but still somehow mess it up baking for some reason. I don't know, man. Maybe I'll learn how to do it in the next few years. Maybe. We'll see. Well, that's where I started. Very simple, easy dishes to make. Things that you just throw together. It's edible, you eat it, and it kind of, serves the purpose of filling you and giving you energy. Pretty straightforward. Then I kind of, stopped cooking for a while, because I worked in like fast food and lots of pizza places and different things like that. So that became like the majority of my cuisine was like pizza. Pizza, breadsticks, wings, like your typical kind of like pizza restaurant food, really. And lots of macaroni and cheese. That was a good classic, and it kind of stayed to like whatever the family had was what I was having. So there's a huge gap there in my life where I never really cooked again or touched food, really. I kept up the skill of dicing veggies and helped out with dinners and things in that way for quite a while, but other than that, it was just sort of like, cool, Dad's cooking mac and cheese, or he's cooking like spaghetti and meatballs or whatever. Alright, I'll eat it. And that stayed pretty much true, really, for quite a long time, until I moved to the UK, really, because even when I lived with my aunt and uncle, they had dinner at the same time every night, and my aunt loves to cook, so I always remember watching her cooking, and sometimes I'd help her out with like different things, like again, dicing, cutting, whatever, really, seasoning, and just kind of picking up those like small steps before the actual cooking part. So I was really good at food preparation, definitely, and I still am. I'm very organized when it comes to food preparing. Oh my goodness, I'll get into that. But yeah, it was just sort of like watching her, and I think that's when it's like, when I started living on my own, like for real, like by myself, or with roommates, I'm gonna have to remember this. Remember what I'm seeing, like a different cutting board for the meat, different boards for the veggies. Set all your spices out ahead of time, dice up all your veggies ahead of time, and just really be prepared to like cook. Always prepare everything before you actually cook. So I remember learning that from her just by watching. So that was really good. And it was nice to kind of pick that up. Then I moved to the UK, and you're on your own, basically. I was quite lucky, though. I had roommates in my first year in the UK who really loved to cook, and so they were always like inviting me down, and we would cook our suppers kind of like together or at different times, and we would just chat and have a good time. And what really got me into cooking, though, and learning more about cooking, though, was when my roommate Annie and we got one of those like food subscription boxes, so you pick your recipes ahead of time, they deliver all the ingredients, and they give you the recipe cards, and you just cook it. We got those quite regularly. I think like once a month we would get that, so we pick 4 recipes worth 4 servings each, so that was 16 servings between the both of us, and we would cook it together. That was when I learned so much about food and cooking techniques and all of that. I learned so much. And what was great about these subscription boxes is that you kept the recipes after. You didn't have to send anything back. You kept them. And when I ordered my first box, because we would take turns, she would order one, I would order one, back and forth, back and forth. When I ordered my first one, they actually gave me a recipe book, so we could actually clip the recipes into the book. So I currently have those. And I like to bring them out every once in a while if I feel like cooking up a fancy curry or some sort of like stir fry, whatever really is what I'm craving. I'll just take a look through that and I'll make my grocery list and onwards I go. That was amazing to me because I had those skills, like those kind of like food prep skills and all of that kind of beforehand. So then getting a recipe where I remember actually kind of getting annoyed at these recipes because they wanted you to like dice things as things were cooking. And I looked at Annie and I was like, hell no. I am doing all this dicing and slicing before we cook. And she laughed at me all the time because she's like, no, we have time. You don't need to worry about it. We can always just do it together and it'll be just as fast. And I'm like, no, we're dicing before. And she's like, okay. But then eventually I got a bit more chill about that. And I was like, oh yeah, we have to wait like 10 minutes for the pasta to cook anyway. That's enough time to dice up the veggies. Yeah, it was definitely interesting to actually like go from cooking like to no cooking at all to cooking with someone to then finally cooking alone. Yeah, because like working and cooking with someone else, it's like you have to have organization. And luckily, you know, Annie and I were quite organized that way. We would be like, all right, you take care of veggies, I'll take care of meat. Or the opposite, like I'll take care of the meat, you cook the veggies, or I'll do the rice, you do this. And like it worked out very, very well. When you have someone who doesn't quite do that, it's like, you know what, how about you just like, why don't you just stir the pot like every couple minutes or so? Yeah. And they're like, okay, you sure I can't do anything else? And I'm like, yeah, you're good with that, let's just keep you there and do that. So I've had some moments like that where I was like, you know, cooking with like my little brother or cooking with my dad once. It's the same thing, like, Dad, you know what, you just stir the pot, okay? Like, I got this. Oh, it's funny when it kind of works out that way. But oh my goodness, guys, the beginning part of this whole process was hilarious because, again, the instructions were also based in like the UK, so British like English and not like North American English. So I remember so many times I'm like reading the recipe card going, Annie, because she had been in the UK longer than I had been, I'm like, what the heck is an aubergine? And she's like, that's eggplant. And I was like, why call it aubergine if it's an eggplant? And she's like, it's the UK, they have names for things, okay? And I was like, alright. And then the same thing with there's so many examples of it. Aubergine and coriander instead of cilantro. And oh my goodness, I had to poke her and be like a student almost to her, which is hilarious because we were all teachers in that house. And so I was always like poking her like, Annie, and she's like, you sound like my students. I'm like, I know, but like, what is this? And it was just like the most fun I've ever had, like learning to really cook and prepare meals off of a recipe and working with someone who could translate some of the British that I was experiencing. The other funny part about it too was me not realizing that a pot could also be called a saucepan, could also be called a soup pot, could also be called this. And then also depending on what you were using, it all had different sizes, so you had to be careful, because if you were dealing with like a 500 milliliter of something and you grabbed the tiny little like saucepan, didn't work. You had to use a proper soup pot. Oh my god, guys, like I didn't realize that all these pans and pots had different names and purposes. What? And even to this day, sometimes I'll grab the wrong one and I'm like, dang it. I'm making something for 4 portions, not 2, and I grab the tiny one, not the big one. Ah! So, there's still things to learn, and, I'll get better at it, I'm sure, over the time, but I think having that first year in the UK with, like, my roommates and, like, doing those subscription boxes was really helpful because I could, like, keep practicing with it. So the first time I did it, it didn't work. I had the recipe. I could always, like, get the ingredients again and try it again. So I remember doing that for butter chicken a few times. I think it took the 3rd or 4th try for me to finally be like, this tastes like a restaurant's butter chicken. I think I finally did it. So that was the nice thing about that first year in the UK. It was all about trial and error. Did I follow the recipe to a T? Oh, I think I used like tablespoon instead of teaspoon. Maybe that's why it's super salty. Or or maybe that's why there's a lot of pepper in it and there's a big kick to this. Need to be a little more careful about that. And I think there's once where I think to top my rice you have to use coriander, cilantro. And it's supposed to be just a pinch, like you're just supposed to kind of sprinkle it on top for kind of like a garnish. But my dum-dum brain read it as like the full tablespoon on the recipe card, even though I was talking about like the ingredient before the cilantro. And I dumped that all. I dumped all of that cilantro on the rice, and I remember Annie's face like, Violet, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? She's like, that's gonna taste like soap. You made our rice taste like soap. And I was like, no, I didn't. That's stupid. But sure enough, we sat down and had dinner, and because all of that cilantro on it, it had like the weird soapy kind of texture that people complain about when it comes to cilantro. So we were both giggling the whole time. She's like, quick, grab the butter chicken, pour the sauce over the rice, we'll fix it, let's go, let's go. So yes, a lot of lessons learned in that first year, but I'm so glad I still have those recipes and I can keep working on it and adding it to it. And I think the only thing that Annie ever complained about to me was that I wasn't into seafood or mushrooms. Those are the things I do not like at all when it comes to food. Anything out of the ocean or river or lake, no, I don't eat it. And I don't like mushrooms because they're rubbery and it's texture and so whenever we got like these boxes, she'd be like, Violet, please can I just take one of our recipes for like my salmon? I really want salmon. I'm like, you know what? Sure. I'll let you have salmon for this box. So that was the only time I think she ever really complained about it. But we ended up balancing it out quite well. And if we did choose a recipe together that had like mushrooms in it, she's like, ooh, we'll split the recipe in half. So then you get half of every other ingredient, but I get all the mushrooms to make up for it. I was like, but then what do I put in mine? She's like, well, figure it out. And that's usually where I would add corn or black beans to like everything. Because, yeah, corn, black beans are a good filler for like most meals and they work with everything. So we would do that quite often, where she would do her mushrooms and take all the mushrooms for the recipe, and I would substitute it for like black beans or corn. We had a good system, I think. But yeah, learning the difference between like just regular grilling to frying to stir fry and how that's different, all the different sauces and oils you could use. Oh my gosh, it was wild. And what's cool about the UK is that some of the spices and the brands on the back of the labels, they would tell you like these kinds of spices pair well with like meat with like beef, chicken, and lamb. This spice would work really, really well with like grilled veggies and like oven roasted veggies. So when I started reading like some of the labels back in the UK, I was like, ooh, okay, I'll keep all this in mind. I'll use the Ras El Hanout, however you say it, for lamb. Got it. And it could work with beef. Perfect. And then and then gram masala and these kinds of things too. They'd always have suggestions on like what works best, like what meat or vegetable would work best with this, or how you should cook with it. That was a big help. I learned a lot that way, because yeah, sometimes my go-to spices for everything, not gonna lie guys, is usually oregano, thyme, rosemary, and cilantro, really. Like, those are my 4 main spices, like, all the time. Oh, and Italian seasoning. How could I forget Italian seasoning? I loved it. Those are my go-to spices. I think they're really nice, and they make your dish just lighter, I don't know, and more savory, so I like it. But when I want my kick, if I want something a little more spicy, throw in that black pepper, red pepper flakes, chili powder. Ooh, just to get that perfect kick. And if you're dumb, like me sometimes, and you go to open the sprinkle cap side and not the pour side, but then you open the pour side instead and don't even look, I have made very spicy chicken before by doing that. Yep. By not looking and paying attention to what I was doing, opening the side where it pours out instead of sprinkles out. And next thing you know, I've turned my chicken from a light dusting of red to full-on blood red chicken because of all the chili powder. It happens. Yeah. I guess that goes into like lessons learned pretty well, hey? Like different pans. And different pans and pots are good for different dishes. So you got your saucepans that are usually smaller that you use for sauces. Makes sense. You don't want to use a big like pasta pan or a soup pan for a whole bunch of sauce. You don't necessarily need a lot of sauce when it comes to things. So a little tiny pot, saucepan. A bigger saucepan or large saucepan would be like for your pasta, noodles. You got your giant freaking pots that you use for bulk cooking. That's basically what I use it for. You just pour a whole box of pasta in that and whole bags of veggies in that, and you cook up a big pasta dish. Yeah, there you go. And then, yeah, then you've got your wok. That's really good for stir fries and like fried noodles and such, and rice. You got your regular pans, which again, good for grilling veggies and meats, and you can also fry stuff in there. And then yeah, you got your different utensils too. Wooden spoon is my go-to. I love it. You can scoop with it, you can flip things over with it. It's the best. Then you got your spatula, you got your flipper. That's what I call it, flipper. And yeah, you just really, honestly, if you can get like a food subscription box that has like recipe cards in it, you learn so much from it. The different pans, different kinds of utensils you need, like whisk and like different kinds of knives too. Oh my gosh. I look back at my childhood and there's times where I remember buttering toast with like a steak knife because I was like, it's a knife. There's no difference to this from like this knife to a butter knife to a steak knife. I can just use this to butter my toast. Yeah, I was that kind of kid. But now I'm like, oh no, steak knife is good for cutting things into little pieces after you slice the meat with the bigger knives, and I get it now. I'm better at it, way better at that now. I will never ever use a steak knife to butter my toast again. You heard it here in the podcast. Yep. And yeah, and oh, different heat. Oh my goodness, guys. If you find a recipe and there is specific instructions for heat, pay attention to that. Please. There's so many times where a lot of us are tempted to be like, oh, I'm in a rush, so you're going to turn it up to like full heat, and no. No, you gotta be careful with that, because then, like, if you're frying chicken, for example, like if you've cut up your chicken breast into bites or like cubes, and you throw it all in there into high heat, and you don't turn your chicken or like stir it around very often, you'll have like 1/4, 1/4 of your chicken very, very brown, and the rest of it not so brown. I totally didn't do that once. No. So yes, be careful with heat. It's very, very important. And when it says to, like, once your pasta has hit boiling, like the water has hit the boiling point, reduce the heat. Reduce it. You have no idea how many times like pasta will stick to the bottom of your pot or to the sides of the pot because you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna let it boil and it cook faster. No, that's not how this works. There are instructions for reasons. That's just, I beg you all, please just pay attention to heat and instructions. Make sure you know the difference between tablespoon and teaspoon, because that is actually a really big difference, and it could make or break your recipe if you make a mistake. So careful. And that's that, really, for lessons learned. No, my favorite dishes that I've ever cooked. Oh man, I've already mentioned it before, but butter chicken. Actually, there's so many curries that I've made that are my favorite, because I just love, oh, I have hiccups now. I love a lot of spice and seasonings galore. I have no idea what garam masala was, or what like cayenne pepper was before, or any of those, or even turmeric. I had no idea what that was for the longest time. And then yeah, I made my first butter chicken, and I was like, ooh, really? That's how you make the sauce like look orangey, like orangey red color? Really? It's through all of the spice? Mind blowing. But gosh, butter chicken is delicious. I like my butter chicken with cilantro rice because, yeah, I don't know, boring white rice to me is just boring. So I like adding cilantro to my rice, and that dish is really good. Nice butter chicken with white rice and a cilantro. Also, yeah, other curries I've made an aubergine curry, so an eggplant curry, vegetarian version, very delicious and yummy. I love it a lot. And yeah, oh, I made a really good lamb curry in the UK. I can't quite make lamb dishes here in North America because lamb is hella expensive here. For example, like, you know how you can get the tubes of ground beef, like the 500 gram ground beef? You can get that at my work for $14. Half a kilo for $14. It's ridiculous. So I miss my lamb. I miss it. But yes, lamb curry. Oh, proper shepherd's pie with lamb instead of ground beef. North America, we're making cottage pie if we use ground beef, not shepherd's pie. But a proper shepherd's pie is so good. Ugh, delicious. I love it. I also made, a chicken poutine. So it's kind of neat to see that be part of a recipe box in the UK. And it wasn't proper, of course, poutine, because it wasn't the proper cheese curds. It was, I think, what did they use? Halloumi? Instead of like the cheese curds we know of here in Canada. It worked out well. I like halloumi, and I discovered halloumi that way. But that chicken poutine was so good because it was like chicken gravy, and you shred the chicken up. Yeah, regular French fries that you cut yourself with the potatoes. Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh. I love it. Love it. I've also, another favorite was the honey Dijon veggie bake that we did. So basically putting, oh my god, we had tons of veggies on there. I think there's like potatoes, potatoes, carrots. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Potatoes, carrots, beans. Potatoes, carrots, beans. Aubergine. And I think corn, and there's one other. There's 6. I remember this. Yeah, you have like dice up all these. Oh, onion. Duh. And you slice them up, dice them up, however you like, basically. You throw them onto a baking sheet, just a little olive oil on it. Season it with whatever you like, so pepper, salt, thyme, oregano. I think that's what I did with this one. And then you make your own honey Dijon mustard. Like, that's part of the recipe, and you like make that up on the side. And then yeah, you bake the veggies for a certain time, and then you bring them out, flip them around the best you can, basically shove it back in, and you pour the sauce on when you put it in the second time. Oh, so good. Food. Told you guys, you will get hungry listening to this, so my bad, but not my bad. It is a cooking and food podcast, so yeah, that's very good. Those are my favorites. I've also made, this really yummy zesty ricotta broccoli and spaghetti dish. Very, very yummy. It has it's lemon. It has like a lemon zesty tang to it. And yeah, you use ricotta cheese and the broccoli, and the way you cook it all up together, the broccoli becomes part of the ricotta sauce. Oh, so good. Oh, I love it. So much good food. Yeah, those are my favorite big fancy dishes that I've made over the years. My go-to quick regular meal prep thing that I do, and it's very simple. It's just literally like a box of pasta, whatever pasta you like. I've been going more gluten-free lately because healthy choices and decisions and losing weight, blah blah blah. But yeah, a box of pasta, you dice up whatever veggies you like. So I would often do tomatoes, green onion, tomatoes, spring onion, corn, peppers, carrots, peas, usually like any kind of combination of those veggies. And I'd cook it in with the pasta, like boil it up, cook it all up, drain it, and then I've been going with more sauceless pasta lately, just because, again, healthy choices, and I don't want anything with large salt content, because salt is sometimes evil to my body. So there's that. So what I do is, instead of sauce, like tomato sauce or Alfredo or whatever, although I have made homemade Alfredo sauce, and it's really good. Instead, I will just put in some like low salt butter or avocado butter, avocado oil butter, olive oil butter, something like that. Grab a big scoop of that, like basically 1 tablespoon full of that, and then pour in a bunch of spices. So again, my thyme, my oregano, my rosemary, those kinds of things, and just kind of really mix that all up and make sure the spices are evenly distributed amongst your pasta and veggies. And yeah, serve it up like that. Occasionally I'll add some feta on top of that, or some sort of cheese, just to kind of give it a little extra something. But that's usually a go-to meal prep thing. It's just a quick, easy box of pasta, bag of veggies, and on you go. My other favorite thing for meal prep, though, are these turkey taco bowls that I make. So good. So it's ground turkey, taco seasoning, obviously, and then you cook a bunch of different things at the same time. So you have to be very good at multitasking for this one. But you cook the ground beef with your vegetables, so you can cook it with your onion, corn, black beans. You mix that all together and you cook it up. Then you boil your rice, and you cook whatever rice you like and boil that up. Then yeah, you serve it with corn, like fresh corn, black beans, tomatoes, rice, your turkey beef mixture, your turkey meat mixture I should say, and then you serve it with a scoop of salsa, sour cream, guacamole, and a sprinkled cheese on top. And that is like your big meal prep bowl. It's so good. Oh, I love it. I haven't made that in a while, and now I kind of want to when I move. That might be a good thing to do. Oh yeah. That's a good meal prep dish. And the pasta's really good meal prep dish too. And yeah, basically those are my main two for meal prepping. Oh, I also make a red curry noodle dish. This one's really yummy because you can get instant red curry sauce. And yeah, it's cheating. You're not making it by scratch like I usually do, but when you're living on a budget, sometimes you just gotta go grab a can of red curry sauce because yeah. But yeah, it's with vermicelli noodles. Like vermicelli rice noodles. You throw in pepper and onion in it, and corn, I think. Just regular corn, not like your peaches and cream or jalapeno and whatever corn, but just regular corn. And it is delicious. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. Yeah. Now, dishes and cuisines that I would like to dabble a bit more into, because as you guys can tell, I'm leaning a little bit towards like Mexican, Italian. It's been like my niche over the years. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes you want to explore other options, and I really would like to get into some more Mediterranean, like Greek dishes, because oof, I gotta have me some tzatziki sauce and some of that dill, like dill's chicken, and oh my god, spanakopita, and oh god, Greek food is so delicious. So I want to go into Mediterranean food and cuisine. That'd be really delicious. I love my Indian food, like your curries, your butter chicken, papadums. Oh, those are fun to make. And yeah, I'm really good at that. But yeah, Mediterranean food. I want to try to get more into Asian cuisine as well, and making like my own green onion cakes from scratch, or oh god, there's so many things too. Like my own dumplings, that would be so much fun. And wonton soup, oh, and pho. I would really like to try to make that for myself. I always go out and always have it for takeout, but I never have made any of that myself yet, so I think that would be fun to learn. And baking, so I mentioned that I want to get better at baking, because yeah, right now my baking skills are those packages of like already pre-cut like cookie dough, and all you have to do is put it on a baking sheet and bake it. That's where I'm at. I haven't made cake or muffins or anything like that at all in my life, so I would love to learn that skill and get good at baking. And I want to try, hopefully, maybe not right away, but maybe by the end of the year, switching to a more of a keto diet, because I know there's so many options out there for like healthy eating, like paleo, keto, low carb, low salt, blah 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 blah. But the one thing I don't like about paleo is how much you have to cut your cheese out. I ain't doing that. Nuh-uh. Nope. I love my cheese. Oh, I love it so much. And yeah, I think I want to try keto, just because most of the keto foods that I've researched and looked at are things I already eat. I just have to substitute things like my pasta noodles and my butter, my oils, and flour. So that's the only thing really to substitute or switch or consider. The only thing is that I don't quite have the budget for like the fancy coconut or almond flours or the avocado oils and that kind of thing. So it may have to be a thing I slowly try and build up to, just because budget will be a big thing for me lately. But it's definitely something I want to move towards too, because man, there are a lot of keto recipes, and a lot of them can be your favorites, like keto mac and cheese, and how you use cauliflower instead of actual noodles, and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's like, oh, I like that dish. I could probably make that dish keto. Wait a minute. Looks like keto version. I can make it keto. And it looks like the same thing. So I think that'll be the next big cooking challenges for me. Will be Asian and Mediterranean cuisines, and challenge myself that way. Also, try my hand at more baking. I would love to make really good muffins. So if you guys know any good muffin recipes out there, yo, send me muffin recipes, because I work near a bakery section currently, and it's so hard to not want to steal all the muffins. So yeah, maybe learning how to make muffins will be good, and then little cupcakes and cakes. So challenge myself and learn the arts of baking might be a good thing. And then yeah, keto, moving to a keto diet, because I love everything avocado. My gosh. Food. But yeah, it's crazy, hey? I started off as this kid kind of cooking very simple, easy dishes and dinners for like my kid, my sister and I, to moving towards more like pizza and Italian kind of cuisine and making those dishes, to now like having dabbled in a whole bunch of recipes at this point, and learning the different cooking equipments and utensils and measurements, and also learning how to kind of play with a recipe and add something to it or take something out without ruining the dish. Yeah, I have learned so much from cooking and for cooking that I can't wait to do more of it. And also learning maybe how to actually let people try my cooking would be good, because I currently have this weird fear of like, I think this is delicious, I like how it turned out, this is amazing for me, but if I let someone else eat it and they don't like it, then I'm not a good chef. Oh goodness, gotta love anxiety and mental health, hey guys? Totally. But I'm building it up. I'm building that confidence. I feel like I've got a good skill set down for lots of kinds of cooking and ways of cooking. It's just time to take that next step and challenge myself further with baking and the rest of the things I said, because that was a lot. And we'll see where it goes. But I love cooking. I do really love coming into a clean kitchen, spending the time like dicing all your veggies up, putting them in like separate little containers that you need for different steps of the recipe. I am that organized, by the way. We have these little like ramekins, these little tiny things, you know, that are supposed to be used for like custards or creme brulees, and I use them for like different veggies. So I'll put my green onion in one, my peppers in the other, tomatoes in the next, and pepper, and like that's how I use those. Instead of baking, those poor dishes become my little like prep containers. But yeah, no, I'm that organized, by the way. Super organized. So yeah, just again, clean kitchen, getting all your equipment out, all the ingredients out, sitting there prepping it all up, and then, oh my goodness, smelling it come to life, literally. You're not cooking it to life, you're smelling it to life, let's be real. And then putting it all together afterwards, it's so satisfying to me. It just makes me feel like this is the one part of my life that I'm organized and controlled in. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah. That was a really long random ramble, but that's why I like cooking and food. Number one, we all need food to survive. Obviously, we need to eat our 2 to 3 meals a day. And we also should learn how to cook because, again, it will help with organizing your life a bit, following steps and instructions, understanding what different spices are and how it all works together. It's actually kind of a cool skill to have, especially if you are someone who wants to have a family one day, or if you are someone who wants to have all these friends over and you don't want to do takeout and you want to cook for your friends, then yeah, it's kind of cool. So, my last final thoughts are, I love cooking. Started at a very young age, then I worked in fast food, watched my aunts kind of cook and prepare food when I lived with her and my uncle. Then it was going to the UK and finally getting these subscription boxes and recipes and really honing in on those cooking skills to now doing it quite well, for myself at least, and now seeing the benefits of it and wanting to push myself further with baking, Asian Mediterranean cuisines, and keto. So, random episode, all about cooking and food, but it was a journey. Lots of food was discussed and a lot of skills were explained and lessons learned. So I hope everyone took a little something out of this podcast episode, and I really can't wait to come with you guys again next week in this little dragon's den, sharing my stories with you all and learning something about something. I think that might be the new theme, actually. Welcome to the Dragon's Den, where we're going to learn something about something. And with that, lovelies, I will call this an episode. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed your beverages. And this is the Mythical Dragon, leaving the Dragon's Den. Bye-bye.